But please welcome someone who is in every right a relationship manager, a strategist, has worked in the telecoms company for years, so has the knowledge required to deliver today. For today, we'll be discussing conflict management and ways to seek out help in those areas if you are either an employee or an employer of labor. Please welcome Pastor Akwara. Okay, please sit down. Please open your hearts and imagine that he's a speaker that came from United States. He said the prophet has no honor in his own. Yes. Okay. Praise the Lord. Okay, so today we'll be looking at conflict management, looking at it from a relationship point of view. And like we said, you are qualified to take this topic. And we want it to be as practical as possible. Once we are done, we'll go into the question asking. Someone once said that if you study the book of Proverbs from beginning to end and you practiced it, you'll have less friction at home and at work. I tend to agree. I think it's a book that is full of emotional intelligence. You know, I'd say for one, Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath. If every time someone annoys you at work, you are able to respond softly, it will help a lot of problems at work. You would agree with me. All right? So, by way of starting, can you just give us a little talk, maybe 5 to 10 minutes talk on conflict resolution management at work, and particularly how you think it should go ordinarily? The basics. Okay, let's do this.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and I want to appreciate the privilege to sit this side of the divide. I am more comfortable that side of the divide. You know, so it's okay to feel like those are the persons who come to talk. The notice was very short because I think I felt it's my tough. I was quick to say a yes to it. I have a presentation. They didn't ask me like they would ask other people if they had presentations, you know, so we are not going to have it on display. But relationship, everything we do in life is woven around relationships, you know. Everything, whether it is formal, whether it is informal, whether it is at home. Sometimes when I drive, I imagine the relationship I have with other vehicles. You know, because I talk to myself a lot. If you sit in the car with me, I'm talking to the other car, you know, the other person who's driving and all. And sometimes people who sit with me are wondering, but he can't hear you and all. So some other times I just sit and I am imagining my relationship with other road users. Sometimes it is good experience. Some other times it is not good experience. Some other times it brings us to the point of conflict of interest because I want to go ahead. You also want to go ahead. And, you know, no one is backing down and there is conflict. And then from one conflict between myself as a road user and then another road user, every other person may be dragged into that conflict, and all of us sit on the road for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours, because by the time you are accessing the point where supposedly the conflict started, you would almost not be seeing anything, you know. So I'm saying this to establish that to the minutest of instances that we can run in our minds. Do you understand? Everything in life is a relationship, even intra-person relationship with yourself. You know, you are always in relationship with your thought process, your thinking, your everything that you want to do. So when we establish that, it would also be important to identify and come to terms with the fact that my lines of interest, you know, would always not be the same with those of another person. For example, I am in relationship with my brother here seated. We are working towards a same goal and same cause. We agree on the processes and the proceedings to a degree, but 100% of the time we may not be aligned. So by the time I understand the fact that there is nothing that I will do formally or informally, officially or otherwise, even at home, that will not require me engaging with the other person, and then I can come to terms with the fact that we will not be in agreement all of the time on the same issues, it will give me good enough a base to be able to have minimal or no conflicts at all with them. So if I come from that mindset, then half the time, even if there are conflicting interests, I am able to glide past. All right. And then the subject is emotional intelligence, right? As an ingredient, with which we can lessen conflicts, because sometimes conflicts are inevitable, and then conflict does not necessarily mean that the other person is bad. It just means that the other person is not seen from my own lens. So when I am in conflict with him, for instance, it's not good enough a reason to label him as a bad person. What it means is that we are not viewing things from the same position, and there are a lot of factors that speak to how and why I view things differently and he is seeing it differently, because we are differently packed. To start with, all of us are of different temperaments. All of us are a bag of emotions at the end of the day. Our temperaments differ, and then the temperaments that are predominant about you and about me now evolve around my innate tendencies and what I have picked up over the time from my surrounding environment. That is why he can be sanguine and I am choleric, and he can be what's the other one, melancholy, and another one can be phlegmatic. But it takes me to recognize that point of us being different, to be able to understand the reason why this might be the reason that he's seeing this thing from this point of view. It also transcends into every relationship, really, even marital relationships, a husband and a wife, regardless of the depth of love that they have for themselves, at some point will be differing on a lot of issues. And the reason that is happening is not because the husband is a terrible person, nor the wife a bad person, but it is because of their emotional build-up, which is their temperament, which over the years has now kicked because of their history and their background and the environment where they are coming from. So if we are able to be as plain as that in our appreciating the other person with whom we are in relationship with, then it will be so easy, a lot more easier, to attend to conflicts when they may arise. Thank you.
Wow. Please, let's appreciate him. I like the angle you started from, the intra-personal relationship, the relationship with yourself. Because when we have conflict, emotional intelligence or not, we tend to blame the other person. And that brings me to a picture that plays in my mind. I still use the picture when I speak to people. The earliest time of our relationship must have been the first 6 months when I got married. And Pastor had to solve the case, Pastor Chris. When one of the aunties came to do omugwo, must have been 1 year plus. And then as she was sweeping the floor, sitting room, I raised my leg and I put it there. And she was sweeping. My wife got angry for 2 days and said, how could her auntie come to the house and she's sweeping the floor? I didn't collect the broom for her. Rather, I crossed my leg that she could sweep. We had to bring it to pastor. What what I'm just saying to say that it was basically no one meant harm. It was the issue of perspective. Pastor made us see that, even though I won the case, but that, but that the fact is that we are seeing things from different perspectives. And the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So more like our words are a product of our thoughts. So I'm trying to imagine what went on in Jesus' mind when he asked the question, who do men say I am? Or who do you say I am? In other words, there was a space for feedback. What's the role of feedback? Trying to find out from people how they see you. How does it help vis-a-vis conflict resolution and emotional intelligence? Have I made sense?
Okay, yes, I think so. And I want to tell a story to buttress the point that you have made, that at the end of the day, everything lies in the perception and perspective. This is a true life story. I have a friend who the child is grown right now, who had a 4-year-old, and then when they laid a mat in their house, it was okay for the young boy to jump around it, to jump around on the mat. And nothing happened. This was a 4-year-old child. Just to talk about perception and perspective and the place of feedback. Now, this young man, little boy, sometimes gets taken to grandpa's place. Maybe the parents are unavailable for a weekend or he's on holiday of some sort, and then he's taken to grandpa's place, and they get there and they lay a mat in grandpa's house, and this boy, who is used to working, jumping, tumbling on the mat in his house, walks on grandpa's mat and he gets spanked. This is a 4-year-old child. Where he was coming from, it didn't make any difference, and so grandpa would always spank the boy, because in grandpa's house, you didn't step on the mat. You probably sat or laid on it, and they go pick this boy, and the boy wouldn't want to go to grandpa's house, or he'll be grumpy and all, and they'd ask him, what happened? I don't want grandpa, and all those kind of things. And then they'd ask the child what went on. He says, because grandpa beats me for going on the mat. And so my friend's wife engages my friend to say that as tiny as this is, it is causing distortion in the mind of this boy, because the mat in his home can be used anyhow, but the mat in grandpa's house is sacred, and you can't as little as work on it. And so grandpa was given that feedback. So grandpa got the feedback that, sir, at home, they climb mat, it didn't mean anything, and that caused a tweak. So grandpa understood where the little man, because in that instance, it's grandpa who needed to understand anyway. The boy can't tell the difference apart, because telling the difference apart at grandpa's place would mean resentment towards grandpa, or maybe other grandpas, or seeing a mat and connoting some other thing that is negative to it. So the place of feedback, many times, especially if you come at feedback with a positive mindset, you cannot underplay the effect it will have in dealing with conflict or an impending one. Thank you.
Wow. That's great. Okay, so, we've had quite a number of people complain. Even when you go for trainings, that they have bosses that abuse them. Beyond the corporate. Someone tells you, you have never done well, you never do well, you are a fool, you can never prosper in this life. It's supposed to be your boss. And when you look at this person, if they leave you and remove Christianity, you beat the hell out of the person. But you can't, right? So the subject of managing your boss now comes in. They say your boss can say whatever say, but you can actually manage your boss. How do you, from your experience, because you've been here and you've been there, and you also have people on top of you, along the chain, how do you manage your boss? Emotional intelligence, how do you manage your boss?
All right, I just wanted to start by saying that I've never worked in an environment where anyone was free to talk down on anybody, because there are structures and then systems in place that you are my boss, that protects my right, to be able to freely be expressive of the things that I have got in me, whilst I am compliant to you and carrying on the work that is given.
But that's because you work in a structured environment, well-structured environment.
Absolutely, but of course it does exist, the way to handle these things is to first and foremost be aware of yourself. Everyone is a blend of emotions. Maybe I should say everyone is a temperament, and everyone will do and undo and react to things from a temperament standpoint. However logical the output of whatever the person is doing is, there is an inflection of Emmanuel's temperament in the actions that he takes. And so it is important that you know yourself. You understand your temperament, and then because you want to have cordiality, at the place of work, you go a step ahead. This is what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence is, I know myself. I've taken a study. I've done a research. I know myself. I am now gathering information. That's what intelligence is actually. I'm gathering information about the person I am working with. If my boss is the person who, by his natural temperament, sometimes which might be weakness or a strength, is not someone I should be talking to about certain things in the morning. If I go talk to him about certain things, let's assume we open our shop and then we need to buy fuel. The fuel is exhausted the next day. If he's the kind of person that gets triggers in the morning, when I come to him with such information first thing in the morning, I am going to be triggering him along the lines of, the not so good side of his temperament. So emotional intelligence is, he's employed me to work with him, right? We have stated or standard work guidelines, right? I know myself. I also go outside of me to understudy and try to understand from his temperament perspective. That is emotional intelligence. Gathering information about the other person so that I know what to do per time, what not to do per time, what to say per time, what will tick them off and what not to tick them off. By the time I am able to gather the information, self-awareness, and then relationship management with the other person, then I can handle him better, even though there can be extreme instances anyway. But basically, emotional intelligence is understanding yourself, taking a further step to understand the people who you are relating with. Emotional intelligence is required in dealing with your wife or your husband, or your father or your brother or whoever it is, or even your church member, and all. So if you gather information concerning the other person to know how they are reasoning, they are thinking, they are responding to instances are, you have gathered that information, you're processing and utilizing it in managing the interactions that you're going to be having with the person, is emotional intelligence. Thank you.
Wow. That's great. I like the part where you said, please questions anytime from now. I like the part where you said it's about gathering information about that person. You talked about temperament. We've had to start teaching love languages in the corporate setting. Because part of the info, if you know the love language of your boss or your downline, particularly if the person has direct input into your progress, into your process, then it helps a lot. So for example, if you have someone, a downline, who responds to words of affirmation, it doesn't cost anything to come to work and say, hey, that project you did the other day, I loved it. It's a great one. Please keep on doing it, okay? Or even things like gifts. It's not politics. You know your boss responds to gift. We're not saying give your salary, but a pen, one or two things. If you study that adds to the information. Because at the end of the day, like you said, if we are to drill down, become very practical, a boss, let's say a male boss that reacts angrily to female downlines. I mean, everyone, he's fine with the males, but the females is always problem. If you drill deeper, even though you're not a relationship coach, you might find out that one or two ladies have given him trouble, you know? And so it's work, it's research. And if you go that way, you can push a lot that way. Still talking about that, maybe we should respond to this, then we'll take question. I talked about some bosses being harsh, and then some employees being harsh. And I learned a long time ago that one of the ways to respond to this is what they call the sandwich approach. Tell the person the truth.
Give the feedback.
Tell them hit them hard, right? And then soften that aspect. Have you had any situation where you had to call a downline and tell them straight, regardless of how they will feel, what they need to know? And after that, we'll take questions from anybody. If you have any challenge regarding emotional intelligence. We're talking conflict management and resolution, but we are focusing on emotional intelligence as a way to forward those thoughts.
Okay, you were asking the question and I was smiling because it's almost an everyday experience, you know, with downlines. So I sit over a team spread across the country because of the nature of what we do. So the fulcrum is sitting in Lagos, but we have a spread of it, you know, all around. And so there are some persons who I have practically like never met. We send mails to ourselves, or we talk on phones and all that, and then engage in meetings. And, you know, once in a while you tell people to undo their cameras so that you see. Yes, I have had instances where I call and I have to say, that's why I also say that there usually is a stated guideline. The baseline is to be respectful of everyone regardless. So by your own nature, you come across as you are respectful of people. You are not disrespectful of people. Because there are people who, even the tone of approach and speaking to you is very condescending. You know, it doesn't have to be extremely obvious. It's work. It doesn't have to be extremely obvious that you are downline and I am upline. We have come to do a work because if left to us, you will not be able to do the upline and downline duties. So baseline, be respectful of people so that when you have to confront an issue, you confront it and it is clear to everyone that this is done very objectively. So I engage with people and then I am able to say A, B, C is not proper. This is what you're doing that is not proper. And I also say it constructively because the system provides for the way I also should address people. And if I am addressing them with retrogressively, the system could also come down on me. So when I have such instances, like you have said, it gets sandwiched, you tell the person the things that you sell their strengths to them and put in between that which they can work on, you know, and then you cover up again to encourage them and tell them, well done, you are doing right. The effect on the person is going to be more positive than when I come and outrightly say to him, what's going on? How many times have I taught you this thing and then you cannot get it? You know, you're not going to engender from the person any positive responses. Rather, you're going to be pushing the person away. So it's important your manner of approach, you know, and understand that's where there are 4 basics, you know, in emotional intelligence. And that's the first will be the self-awareness. And the second will be regulating yourself, you know. Regulating yourself. And the third will be social awareness. I understand that he requires to be respected as much as he is my staff. I understand the fact that he is Yoruba and I am Igbo, and there are certain things that are peculiar to his culture. Or he is English and I am Nigerian, and it doesn't matter if he calls me by name, even though I am 30 years older than him. So you see, you understand yourself, you self-regulate, and you are able to socially be aware, to know the things that everyone is not you, everyone does not live in your house, everyone does not like the things that you like. And then the third one will be relationship management. You see, when you tweak all of these things, it helps you to manage the various kinds of relationships that you have. So that when you work with someone, and for example, there are people who don't shake hands. There are ladies who cover head. My organization allows for you to, they can't shake your hands. You know, you have birthdays and we're easy to hug, and and shake. They can't share anything with you. I will have to respect that woman or that man who does not shake a woman, So by the time I understand that it doesn't make me better than him. I just am aware that he is a different person. There is a common goal, and we must align to be able to deliver on the common goal, and then we move on. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. All right, time, particularly for those who are jack buying. It's not like Nigeria. If you go there, you do anyhow, you see anyhow. There are rules, there are regulations that you need to follow. Okay, Pastor, want to say something?
Okay, on a lighter note, in your organization, somebody who covers fully, that's the ones that really dress like masquerades, can they so there are some you have never seen their face. Some of your...
Oh, yeah.
You see them physically, but you have never seen their face.
We just see from the window.
Are you serious?
Oh, my God.
Wow. Okay, so thank you, Pastor Uche. I must say this at this time. Over the years, working closely with you, I've learned so much about relating with people and managing people. Okay, from you indirectly, one way or the other. I used to be somebody who is very brash, don't know how to talk and all that, but by watching you, I've learned so much. And that's why in the pastoral, when we have some difficult messages to convey, it's you that we ask to come and announce it. Because you always have a good way, sir, of saying it. All right, thank you so much. My question is this. Like Jesus said, forgive 7 times 7 and then whatever, another. Is it time? Is there a number to which the number of times you encourage somebody before you deal hard with them? Is there a number to it, or you never do descend on a downline heavily? Do you never do that? Or maybe it's after like 3 or 4 times and then you really talk to them like a Lagos boy that you are and all that? I just wanted to know.
Okay, so if it's a system has laid down guidelines. You are allowed initially to do a coaching. That's what you call a coaching, and that will be that you have identified something, that needs to be corrected, and so you engage in a coaching, and you have to be aligned with the person to ensure that the coaching was passed. So, did you get all this? Did you see all this? The person and I have to align to see that, oh, truly, I didn't do right here, and then the coaching is passed, and we sign a document. This is in a structured system. Now we sign a document, and then beyond that, if it repeats itself, then there is what is called a verbal warning. If it repeats itself, there is what is called a written warning. Then if it further repeats itself, then you can decide to call and set up a panel on the person. But with me, I don't have rules with the people I work with because I don't do very well with rules. I'm so very much an informal person, even at work. So before I get to the point where we'll have to be doing coaching one-on-one, boy to boy, pally to pally, I would have been handling this thing. I would have been handling this thing and all. I also employ a method, private method that is name and shame. So I can decide after I would have exhausted the personal rapport thing and it's not working, I can decide to throw the conversation onto the group. So if there is a mailing list, I can write you a mail to tell you ABC and SY, and that's another way of letting you come in check. You're doing this thing, maybe it's because I am handling it privately that you're not getting it. When I say it outside here, I say it, and then if the person does not get it, then I push the machinery of the system in place. I go the route of the formal coaching and I get it documented. I go the route, if it persists, I go the route of verbal warning, written warning, and then setting up a panel. So whatever happens at that point, I would have satisfied my conscience that, I did everything to be of assistance to you. This is a formal setting. But in an informal setting, let's say in your house, your child, let's say in your house, your spouse, for how long would you condone it before you strike? The word says if you spare the rod, the child spare the rod, and that the child will get spoiled and everything like that. So I think there has to be, how be it informal, there has to be a time that it is corrective, it is to better you and me, it is to better our relationship. There has to be a time you have to call a spade, let the person feel a little bit of the pinch. When they recalibrate in their senses, they come back to you and then we can glide past. But if you allow it go on, then a lot more things will get damaged in the process.
All right. More questions? Please, let's appreciate him. More questions?
Okay, so... No, you go when you're done. So a follow-up question. So I want to ask now, not generic, I want to ask, I want to paint a real-life scenario. Yeah. So I work with some guys, yes. So I sort of lead them. Yeah, I lead them. And most of them, when they get to become better, they join us. When they come to become better, they either move to other places. I either recommend them for another place because that's more money to pay there. But there's this one person that over the past, say, 8 months, this person seems not to be growing. So everybody that would come would join as a novice, and before they leave, they will be very good at what they do. But this person refused to just grow. Sometimes this person will come and ask me a question, and I will look like, you are still asking this question at this time. So, and it got to a point, this guy will keep complaining that there is no money, there is no this, there is no that. I had to just plead and sanction and give him access to hybrid working. Say you can work from home to this, which I later regretted because you're supposed to be coming to the office when you are not that good yet. It got to a point that I saw an opportunity where somebody asked me to refer. I could not refer this person because I'm scared if I refer this person will go and spoil my reputation and they might not really rate me like that again. So at this point, this person is older than me, way older than me. So we've joked about it, we've bant about it. I don't know how to shout on people. So how do you... And I don't want to write anything that would implicate his job, that make them maybe fire him or something. I don't want to be in that picture at all. So how do you navigate that?
How do you get him fired without being?
So I get your question. Sometimes it's inevitable. You will have to do it, but before you get to that aspect. I think more importantly as a leader is to spotlight the good and the bad in people and help them become better on what they are good on and see how that you can cursor their lives, especially in the areas where it's not their weakness. What I usually do with people that way who cannot thrive, especially in the line of our operations, the functions that is given to our unit, right? I begin to look out for their areas of strength. So I have clearly seen that, if we leave him here 50 years, he cannot rise above here. But I have also interacted with him to know that he is not an empty well. There is an aspect still that he has might, that if we shed a bit light, he will shine. I begin to look for those opportunities and begin to push his way. Sometimes he doesn't think he can do it. I will go to that particular unit and say, when people have this opening here, I have somebody say, how do you know? I say, I have worked with this person, and I know that he can do it. I don't tell him. I come back to tell him, there is going to be this opening in that space very soon. We will have to submit your CV.
So that you can leave us in peace.
Well, yes, so that he can, because again, if you continue to allow him, some people may think there is something you are getting from him. Why are you keeping him? When I do one tiny mistake, you are the one shouting on me, but this guy is here. But at the same time, I am trying to look out for him. I don't want him pushed out, because if he doesn't perform over 2 performance cycles, he gets pushed out. So I begin to find a way. How can we help him? He has 3 children at home too. So I don't want him to go and then begin to call me my own little change that is not enough. On the 25th, he's calling me to give him some. I don't want that to happen. So I'm looking out at the other unit for him. Are you people going to have a vacancy very soon? I have somebody in my space who can do it. I come back to him and tell him, they are going to have a vacancy in that place, and we must throw our CV, and then we do that and we move on. The work of a leader is to relate with the people and elicit from the person the very best of him. Now, in trying to do that, if you have related and you can't draw the best of him from what the assignment is, try and advise him. We had somebody in my space who we didn't know was going through a divorce situation, was married, and the divorce was on the table for them and all, and they were not performing. They were not performing, they were not pulling their weight. They were detached from what was going on in the system. And everyone will point, when we didn't meet our KPIs, everyone will point, is that person, push him out, write a mail, do this. And I went on the reverse. And I began to engage with this person to understand that they were suffering from, the divorce instance was messy. Their children had been taken away from them, and it was enough to make someone collapse emotionally and not be able to get involved in any other thing. And so I got interested in that aspect of their life, and we began to talk and we began to do things, and to an extent, they came back alive, and then they were able to begin to put into. So it's not every time that you should blanket say, we came here to work. That's why you're going to be emotionally intelligent, because you know what? They need to be balanced for you to be able to draw from them to deliver on the work that you have been given.
Wow. That's great. Pastor Uche, what you said just ties to what Friends Connect is all about. Business, career meets missions. So on one hand, you are doing work. On the other hand, you are doing the Lord's work. So that works out perfectly well. But you said something which will move me to the next point, and then we tie up with Gen Z. Millennials. Okay. Yeah, please, you said after that. You're going to talk about Gen Z and Gen Millennials. Those ones that they said that they don't have time for work. If you mess them up, they'll just walk out and leave salary for you and just be going their way because they don't care.
The story of my life.
But before that, you said something. So you come in. You said that if you keep trying to manage the situation without apportioning the right punishment, they may think there's something between you and the person. Which brings me to the male-female relationship at work. We're talking about emotional intelligence. You can't cut out emotions at work. So, at the same level, this man and this woman are having feelings, emotions for each other. Oga is having feelings for the subordinate. Subordinate is having feelings. Some people are having feelings with everybody at work as a way of manipulating them. How do you handle male-female relationship at work vis-a-vis productivity?
Okay, I don't want to mic on this. But then, the people you work with sometimes are very close to you. They are family. You see them most part of the day, 5 days a week. You see your spouse in the evening. Sometimes you don't even see when the spouse stays 5 hours on 3rd Mainland Bridge. So you eat and go to bed. Sometimes you guys will chat. So it is a deliberate and intentional effort. If you work in my kind of environment, young and bubbly environment, and it is not everybody who is talking and demon chasing like you, so you have to begin to bring caution. And then the workplace too knows that when people work, when people do things as a family, that it is easier to work. And that's why in the workplace, my kind of workplace, you are encouraged to call yourselves by first name, because it is assumed that when I put Mr. or brother or master, there is a little gap. So They want that we close up on the gap and be able to relate so that I don't feel any inhibitions whatsoever. And it is geared toward, it's not because of anything, it is geared towards being able to draw the most for productivity so that they can, so that, the company can actualize its goals and objectives. So it is for you. It is for you to know where to draw the line. It happens every now and then, but you're the one who's going to make your decision for yourself to know this is to the extent that I am a very free person. I relate with males. I relate with females. I know the ones that are coming with intentions. I know, and when I do that, sometimes I just joke. If you can go past this, when you come to it, and I'm like, I joke and I do like this. We play a lot in my space, and I'm like this. I know you can't go past this one and all. But I'm saying that it is what you have decided to do, because if you are unguarded and you get into such spaces, you will do like every other person is doing. So what have you decided to do, and how are you guarding yourself, and how are you identifying yourself in your place of work? Playful as I am identified as, I know he can't go beyond the space and what have you. So identify yourself in your space, your identity as God's child, and what you can do and not do, and not necessarily even because you have a wife or you have a husband who you don't want to cheat for. They should know that you stand for these as a child of God, and then yet you can interact, because we are God's children, we are Christian, and we cannot, proximity is the only way by which we can beam this light to them. And so we can't be secluded from them and expect them that they pick, the God nature that is in us. But be intentional about what you want in your workspace, and, it will stay that way for you.
All right. Robuchi, we still have some good time.
Yeah, please, on a larger picture, the aftermath of the process that Nigeria have gone through, a lot of people are hurt. Yeah. There's tension everywhere. And even brothers in church, friends in church. Like I opened my phone this morning, and a pastor I respect so much posted something that hurt me. It hurt me. Not because I didn't take part in the election, but whether voting or what. I've decided I'm not voting in Nigeria again. Unless I leave Nigeria. And I took that decision after the last one of 2019. No more. Because I can't stand some of the things Okay, my question is, do we really think that there can be healing, that the situation can be managed? Especially among brothers. Because if I were to be in the church of the pastor I mentioned this morning, maybe I was already seated in church and I saw what he posted, I would have walked out. And I'm just talking about, I'm being practical.
All right.
Okay. So do we really think there can be healing? And how do we begin to go about managing where we are?
Adding, please, beginning from the workplace. So we don't do a more larger scale Nigeria. Let's workplace focus.
If we can play back to where I started from, yes, if we can play back to where I started from, is the fact that you must know yourself and then get to the point where you begin and accept and appreciate the fact that the other person has a right to be different from you. The other person has a right to think differently. The other person has a right to choose differently. Has a right of, a different choice from mine. And that's what I think has played out here. So it makes it, for my kind of person, as much as I think that, because sometimes I'm like, are these people okay? But I call back to memory the fact that it's a process, and everyone has got a right of choice to queue up behind any person. So after we do all the back and forth, you put forth your reasons for support for side A, and I put forth my reason for support for side B, and either ways it goes, I am able to heal from the standpoint of, at the end of the day, he had a right to be different from me. That's what. So I just move on from it. And then you said I should tie it to the workspace?
Yes, the workspace. Because, I mean, on Monday, you're going to have people look, you're talking about conflict resolution, emotional intelligence. Someone from another tribe is going to look at the other person from another tribe and say, woo, woo, I told you, pack out, leave this country, all those kind of, and then we're talking productivity. You don't expect the person to approach work with the same mindset. Maybe fight, one or two eyes will be go red at work because, you know.
So those are very extreme instances. We don't have in my workspace. We have tolerance for religion. We have tolerance for ethnicity, and we have tolerance for political leanings. So all of those are played in the workspace within the confines that are allowed. There is no better religion. There is no better tribe. There is no better political leanings. Everything is on the basis of interest. And so when we come with banter here and there, and everyone is focused on the central mission, which is to achieve. Because when we begin to achieve that, my Igbo-ness and my Christianity and my LUPT, does not come to bear on the work. And they impute all of their own and we achieve the goal. So if we look at it broadly from that stance, then we are able to try. But generally, even in church, why not? The person has a right. The person has a right to, there's nothing that they have done wrong. It was a political affiliation. They thought that this person is better on whatsoever basis. So that era has come and has gone. I should be able to engage with them and go them,
I think you're right. The more idea, and that's why we talk about diversity at work. As you leave your immediate environment and go to other countries, you're going to see someone who says he identifies as a tree. And you have to respect him because he's a tree. You can't go mad. Someone will say, I'm a chair. If the law says this person can be a chair, you can't fight the person. So that's what diversity does. Another word, please, if you are in a position to say things, to make pronouncement at work, to call for a training, you need more diversity trainings this period. You need to call people for meetings and explain. Because at the end of the day, what makes up culture is mission, vision, and values. Everyone has mission, vision, values. Then, when you have a collection of people from a tribe, they have their mission, they have their vision, they have their values. When you come to work, the workplace has its mission, vision, values. At the end of the day, it's the culture of the place and productivity that matters. Every other thing has to go down. Pastor Uche, Gen Z millennials. Some people have said this, please, I'm just saying what they say, that these people don't have emotions. In local parlance, they don't send you. And I recall what a chief executive of a bank said. He had walked into a bank, this one is a real life story, I saw it, and he caught someone, a much younger generation staff, at the front desk, fiddling with the phone. And on the spot, he fired the person. He said days later, he got a mail direct from the person, firing the boss. Telling him, in languages that you can't even imagine, if not for age. How do you manage emotional intelligence in the workplace with millennials and Gen Zs?
So you have to be on your toes all of the times, and you have to, how do they put it right now? The stick and carrot thing, you have to play that a lot, and then you have to be open-minded, because I think that I have a lot of struggles with many of them, even in church. I work with a lot of them. We're having one such conversation, right? We're having one such conversation on the Hype space, and I was saying that if Hype were a workplace, I would have fired a lot of people. But this is church, and you can't fire anyone. And why? They're coming from, I honestly think we need somebody who will be able to tell us the makeup of, how that the Gen Zs are much worse right now. How that the composition of the millennials and the Gen Zs, because it just looks like they are from outer space, then no send you. A lot of the times, they also, with all due respect, there is no emotional depth. whilst he has the skill that I don't have. He has the skills that I don't have, and he has that skill because that's what's in the market right now, and I need to mime that skill, right? I need to mime that skill to still stay in business.
True.
He lacks depth. He doesn't have any depth. And so I am more visionary and I know what I want. I will begin to put in place systems and structures that will help him, if not in total, at least the hours of 8 and 5 that is going to be with me, to align so that he is able to function with other people on a very plain level. And then I mine from him that skill that he has that we need to make the business thrive. So it is a conflict of generations, actually. So we are coming from a more conservative generation. We didn't have phones. We were not exposed. But right now with the phone, a child born is everywhere in the world. You only just need, and when we were growing up, it was just somebody traveled to America and the person traveled to London and they come back. But on the comfort of his phone, he has gone everywhere. He knows everything. He has all the information. And so he is having this meshing of cultures in him. And so you're coming from a local stance, trying to tell him what is. And he's imagining and reasoning. Somebody my age or even younger is thriving like this with this kind of thing in UK, and another person is thriving in New Zealand. So if you understand the limitations that we had coming, it's just for you to use your wisdom, to extract from him that his skill, put systems and structures in place that will make him be compliant to how you want things run, and then the organization will continue to flourish.
Wow. Please, let's appreciate him. What I get from your conversation as we begin to wrap up is the need to be open-minded.
Oh, yes.
Because beyond the Gen Zs and the millennials, there's another generation that is coming. Those ones don't want to hear, and like someone said, even the church should be concerned.
Totally.
How Christianity will thrive with this generation. Because as far as they are concerned, I'm not digressing. This is the generation that you come and tell them, Jesus heals. They have malaria. Jesus heal me. Jesus doesn't heal them. They have gone. Because it's about promise. You promised and you failed.
There is no depth.
That's there. So these things are for corrections. These are things to learn. We've equally seen millennials, Gen Zs that are very deep. They've taken time.
Oh, yes.
Okay? And so if you want to be a more broader-minded person, more productive, these are things to engage. Let me also say that we're on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube, check Friends Connect, you'll see most of these sermons and you can acquaint yourself. These are even training materials you can use on Monday morning, to explain to the person sitting by your side or the person you're working with, so you can go that way. Any more questions, or we wrap this up on a high? You have a question?
Praise the Lord. So I have this question to throw out. So we are talking about emotional intelligence, and there are some people, they are so tricky about that. Once you give them the room, they override it. So let me give an example. Someone walked up to you and said, okay, I have a deal for you, but this is the deal. There's no money coming out. But this is the money coming out. It's not much. Let's just do it for next time. And the person asks, okay, you now consider it, okay, because it's a deal, let's work on this. And at the end, you finish the deal. The person know you did well, you give 100%, and the person like, okay, collect your balance remaining, like agreement. You find it difficult to have it. For him to pay you back, you find it difficult. And at the end again, he come back again with the same approach. So how do you manage that tricky,
slimy tendency of the person?
Is there no scripture for that?
Oh, yes. Okay, so what came to my mind was, immediately he was asking the question, what came to my mind is, that war is also a conflict resolution strategy, howbeit that it is extreme. It is when every other thing. So I'm saying that emotional intelligence gathering is not the same thing as foolishness. Because war is a strategy to resolve conflict. We have disagreed. We have broken down. We went to court. You not agree. We go rack blow at the end of the day. It happens. That's also a strategy. And this story jumped to mind. The interaction between Solomon and those two women. Solomon and the two women, he came about how he resolved that issue it came from a place of emotional intelligence, because one of the women came and began to display, is my baby, I was sleeping, and the other woman came, laid on her own is dead, and on. And this man was just thinking, okay, so how am I going to resolve this issue right now? Because let us put a knife now and cut the baby. And the other person says, the other one says, yes, divide. Then the other person came and said, no, don't do that. Instead, take the baby and give to her. Let her have it, and all of that. And then the man came by and said, you know what? Now this one be the real mama. So what I'm saying is emotional intelligence. If you have to put a stop to a thing, if somebody is taking you for a ride, and you have watched it once or twice, if somebody is disrespecting you and you have watched them once or twice, you are intelligent enough to shut the door, to severe it if you have to. Because war is also a strategy to resolve conflict, howbeit that it is an extreme strategy. Thank you.
True.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So how does one go about improving his or her?
To approach it is to look at it from, what was the intention of this person? Did they actually want to make a mess of me, or did Yawa just happen somewhere along the line? If you're able to act that, all of those will speak to your own emotions and you will react even nicer. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, you can ask God to help you. Being of short temper is a weakness. In fact, I had plenty of that before. So you can ask the Holy Spirit to help you. And then also grow up, keep maturing. If you keep looking, or if you look back, or if you keep reminding yourself of relationships that you have lost, that you didn't need to have lost, it will help you get better. And after some time, you get used to the new you want to become.
Wow.
I wanted to say something on a lighter note. I'm not sure that a lot of persons know that I am quick-tempered. I think it's only Esther here who can tell you how fiery. I'm sure you'll be surprised. But only my wife can tell that I'm quick-tempered. And I'm working on it like faster. Thank you.
Okay.
So you see the nice sides here.
Yes.